Okay, so the majority of this unit is about logical reasoning around finding missing angles in shapes. It's always really tempting to reach for a protractor and start measuring your angles for these kind of questions. It won't help you. None of the pictures you'll get in your GCSE are drawn to scale. So this is all about using logic to try and go several steps to try and find out something that you're being asked. So there's a large number of different angle rules, and there's 4 that you would have met at Key Stage 3, which we're going to revise first before moving on to some of the more complex ones. And the 4 that you've met at Key Stage 3 are in front of you. So we're going to start by looking at angles at a point. I've got a screw here, and I'm going to put my screw down on that line which goes down to the right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it anti-clockwise, and I'm going to turn it through that red angle. So it is pointing upwards and to the left. I'm now going to turn it through the blue angle, and you'll see it's now pointing downwards and to the left, and then I'm going to turn it through the black angle, and it's now pointing in the same direction it was before. Just going to have a quick look again, if I can not lose that screw. It goes through the red, through the blue, and through the black. All in all, that screw has done one complete turn. One complete turn is 360 degrees, so we can say angles at a point, my black, my blue and my red all together, add to 360 degrees. So let's just make sure that's noted down. Add to 360 degrees, and we'll call that rule 1. My second one, angles on a straight line. So here I'm going to start with my screw pointing down that straight line to the left. It's going to turn through the black angle, where it's going to end up there. Then it's going to turn through the red angle, and it's going to finish facing like that. So all in all, it's facing in the opposite direction. It's gone through half of one full turn. If it's half of one full turn, it must be half of 360. So we can say our second rule, angles on a straight line, add to 180 degrees. Our third rule concerns vertically opposite angles, and it's easiest to look at that with a pair of scissors. So if I think when I open my scissors, I've got an angle here between the blades and an angle here between the handles. Those angles are going to be the same. When I close the scissors, both of those angles reduce. When I open those scissors, both of those angles increase. And those angles are always going to match. You can always spot that through an X shape. And so we can see that those must be the same angles. And so we say our third rule is that vertically opposite angles are equal. They equal each other. The black and the red equal each other. The last one, which we're all familiar with, is our angles in a triangle. You've got your 3 angles here, your black, your red and your blue. And your fourth rule is that those 3 angles together add up to 360 degrees. So we're going to do one question together before I give you some to solve yourself. And with all of these questions, the trick is to start finding out any information you possibly can. So don't worry too much about which angle it asks you to find. Just find out anything that you can possibly find out. So, looking at this shape, I've got these 2 lines here. That tells me that this triangle here, the left-hand triangle, is an isosceles triangle. Those 2 are the same length. So I've got essentially a line of symmetry running down the middle here. The 2 angles here, I'm just going to put a dot on them, are equal. So the first thing I can do, if I know that this is 50, I can find out what each of those angles are. I'm going to label them as 1, and they must be equal to each other, so they're both labelled as 1. I can find them both at the same time. I know that the angles in a triangle add up to 180, so I'm going to do 180 take away 50, which is 130, and divide that by 2, so that each of those angles must be 65. So let's write that down. Angle 1 equals 180 take away 50 divided by 2, which is 65 degrees. And I need to be really clear about my reasoning. The reason, looking at these 4 rules, is angles in a triangle add to 180 degrees. Now, I do want you to give your reasoning as you're doing this. In your GCSE, you need to be really clear with your reasoning. You will not get the marks unless you put in your reasons. Okay, so I now know that I've got 50, 65, 65. I can't really do anything with this 65, but this 65 sits on a straight line with this angle here. 65 over here, my other angle here, making that up to a straight line. So I can find out, if that's 65, what angle 2 must be. So 2 must be 180 minus 65, which is 115 degrees. And the rule that I used there was this straight line down here, so angles on a straight line. So we're almost there. I can now find x, because I know that this is 115 degrees, this is 31 degrees, and I've got a triangle here. So, looking at finding x equals 180, that's 115, take away 31, take away 115. 180 take away 115 is 65, take away 31 is 34 degrees. And the reasoning again is angles in a triangle. This kind of question would be somewhere between the middle and the end of the foundation paper. It's not an easy question. It would be worth probably 4 marks. 1 mark for finding your 65, your next mark for finding your 115, your next mark for finding 34, and a mark for making sure your reasoning is really clear, going back to those rules that we laid out up at the front. Pause the video now, make sure you've got your 4 rules written down and that you've got your worked example written down there, and then we're going to try some questions ourselves. Okay, so here are 6 questions for you to try. Please make sure you do draw down the shape using a ruler, please, and make sure that as you do your reasoning that you are clear as to which angle rules you're using to justify why you've done what you've done. Okay, pause the video now, have a go at those questions, and then unpause the video when you're ready to mark your answers. Okay, hopefully you didn't find those too difficult. I'm going to very quickly talk through the reasoning for each of them. On the first one, we used angles on a straight line to find out that this angle, which I've labelled 1, is 55 degrees. Then we used my triangle to find that x was 45 degrees. On the second one, we firstly used the straight line to find angle 1 here, which was 69. Then we used our triangle to find angle 2, which was 37. Then we used my straight line to find out that this must be 143 degrees. Question 3, you've got an isosceles triangle, so once you've found angle 1 using the straight line, 57, you know that this is also 57 degrees, so you did 180 take away 2 lots of 57, which gave you an answer of 66 degrees. Question number 4 was probably the most complicated of all of them. You could find 1 and 2 using the straight line, giving you 26 and 107 respectively. Finding 3 then using your triangle of 1, 2 and 3 gave you 47 degrees, and then finally you needed to use the straight line to find x, which was 133 degrees. For question 5, you used the top triangle to find angle 1, which was 100. You then used the straight line to find out that angle 2 was 80 degrees, and then you used the bottom triangle to find x, which was 40. For the last one here, you're told that these 3 sides are equal, which means that these 3 angles are equal. 3 angles are equal, it's an equilateral triangle, so to find the size of each one, we did 180 divided by 3, which was 60. Once you've found this was 60, you can find angle 2 using the straight line, told you it was 120, then you use the left-hand triangle and the fact that they add up to 180 to find out the missing angle x, which was 37 degrees. Give yourself a mark out of 6. If you need to do any revision on those, please take a look at Hegarty Clips 477 to 487. Well done.